Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Hoops and Huddles. I'm going to talk about two different subjects today. I want to recap the Suns' big win over the LA Clippers, and I also want to talk about that Draymond Green suspension. So, to start with the Clippers versus the Suns, I had nothing but good things to say about the Clippers after they won Game 1. I thought Russ played phenomenal. I thought, obviously, Kawhi was dominant. I thought in terms of coaching, Ty Lue outcoached Monty Williams. Lots of things I took away from that first game that made the Clippers look good. But going into Game 2, something kind of changed halfway through. It opened very promising for the Clippers. I felt the defense on Kevin Durant was as good as it was in Game 1. I'm loving this maneuver that Russ was doing where basically he would allow KD to drive past him, and then when he pulls up for a mid-range, Russ would come up and block it. That happened twice early on in this game. One of them was credited as a block, I believe. I don't think the other one was, but basically Russ was there to contest both of those jumpers, and it's like he did that a lot in the first game, and it seemed incredibly effective. I was thinking to myself, like, man, if Kevin Durant can't adjust to this, I don't know what he's going to do. But, lucky for him, he actually didn't have to adjust to it because partway through the second, I want to say, Russ just stopped doing that for whatever reason, whether it was a coaching decision, whether it was a Russ decision. That sort of contest just didn't exist for the later part of that game, and I think that allowed Kevin Durant to kind of get into a rhythm, and once he got into a rhythm, the entire offense opened up. Once he started knocking down shots, Devin Booker started to get hot, and Devin Booker was definitely the highlight of this game for the Phoenix Suns. He dropped 38 points, was 4 of 7 from 3, which is something you rarely see from him. But yeah, it was all around like a dominant performance from Devin Booker. I thought DeAndre Ayton is also someone who is underrated on this Phoenix Suns team. If he can win his matchups inside, which, for against most centers, he has a pretty good shot. If he can win his matchup inside, I think they're one of the more dominant teams in the league. And I think that when they were going to him, when they're passing to him at like the foul line, maybe a bit further back, and he's just hitting those jumpers, I mean, that is the shot that the Clippers are going to let him have, and it's a shot that he's going to make comfortably because they just don't want Mason Plumlee or Zubats to come out that far because that once they do, it opens the floor up to cutters, and they're not confident in their ability to protect the rim if the Clippers have their center out that far. So overall, I mean, that was pretty impressive on the Suns' behalf. The adjustments were there. I do think what we saw from the Clippers, on the other hand, I mean, one person, as a Lakers fan, every time we would play Nicholas Batum, the guy would just light the world on fire. He was great. And it's like watching him throughout the season, he's been a 40% three-point shooter, but now for these last two games, it's like he can't hit anything. Like it's crazy. Without Paul George, they need their role players to step up. And if this guy can't hit shots, I mean, he has the length to be a decent defender, but it's like he needs to be able to hit those corner threes. If he's missing corner threes, they got a problem because they won't be able to generate enough offense with just Eric Gordon and Kawhi Leonard. And I mean, Russell Westbrook had a good game, but it's weird. Like, despite him being 3 for 19 last game, I almost feel like that was just a better game for him all around. I mean, when you look at the box score on today after Game 2, he looks dominant. He had 28 points, 5 assists, and 5 rebounds. And it's like, okay, that sounds great. Like, and it is great. I mean, I'm not going to try and take away anything from Russ, but it's like that was not what was really working in their favor last game. I mean, like it's great that Russ is able to score with that sort of efficiency. That's what you need from him. But he was like wreaking so much havoc on the defensive end in Game 1. It seems bizarre that he kind of just took like a traditional like number 2 role alongside Kawhi in this game, because I just don't think that's how you're going to beat the Suns straight up. Like, I don't think you can just kind of have a very typical and cruise your way defensively to a win in this series, especially if you don't have Paul George. So while I can appreciate what Russell Westbrook did in that game, I just don't think that he's being utilized correctly. I mean, if he can keep that efficiency up, that's phenomenal. But at the end of the day, I think he just needs to be more of a defensive presence. I think if he can keep that efficiency up, would be phenomenal. But how they were utilizing him on defense, I think, is the sort of thing that's going to give them the edge going forward in this series. So overall, my takeaway from this game is, it's great that the Suns won. Obviously, they needed to because they already conceded home court advantage to the Clippers. From the onset, I predicted the Clippers would win, and I predicted the series would go 7. So, it's definitely it definitely won't be the Clippers sweep that some Clippers fans were hoping for after Game 1. It is going to be a longer series, but I'm really curious what the adjustments will be from the Clippers coaching staff going forward. So anyways, that wraps up my take on Game 2 between the Suns and the Clippers. I did want to get to the Draymond Green suspension. That is the big news making headlines today. I didn't do a video recapping Game 2 of Warriors-Kings because I felt that, we're not going to know anything at this point until we get to Game 3, and if the Warriors lose home court there, they're going to be in serious trouble. But as for Game 2, I kind of expected them to lose, despite what Vegas had the Warriors as the favorites again. But I do want to talk about this Draymond Green suspension because obviously the stomp on Sabonis and the discourse around that has been a huge part of the last 24 hours. It's so funny, like, people in today's day and age, and this applies not just to sports, but like politics and all sorts of different things, it's like they can watch something and they can convince themselves that what they're seeing is not what they're actually seeing. And it's always to like confirm a sort of bias that they already have. So we look at what that play between Sabonis and Draymond and how it's being described in some corners of the media is like, oh, that's just what you get for grabbing someone's ankle. And it's like, even the phrase grabbing someone's ankle, I just feel like that is very misleading about what actually happened. I mean, when you say grab someone's ankle, you think someone literally grabbed your ankle and pulled you to the ground. It's like, bro, the guy was there, Sabonis was there trying to clutch his face or shoulder, and it's like his arm did get tangled up with Draymond Green's ankle, but it was for like a second. And it's like, it wasn't like he was holding on. Like, it's so misleading how Warriors fans especially are describing this. Like, this dude was just yanking on him. Like, that's not what happened. And then obviously with Draymond, it's like, okay, he felt he was tugging him a bit. So that in his mind, he's like, oh, I might be able to get like a bit of a free shot in here by stomping on him. That's obviously what happened. I don't think there's really any disputing that's what happened. But how it's being treated is like they're equally, well, not by everybody, but by some, how it's being treated is like they're just equally bad acts. And, if Draymond got tossed out, Sabonis should have been tossed out, or Draymond shouldn't have been tossed out at all because it was like, that's just a play on, it's just some back and forth stuff. It's like, come on, guys. Like, that is not what happened. If the dude grabbed his ankle and he yanked him to the ground, we would be having a different conversation. That is not what we saw, but people are acting like that's what they saw, which is crazy. Anyway, so now the NBA comes out and says that Draymond Green is going to be suspended for Game 3. So I'm actually very surprised. I thought that since the hell they caught for suspending him for that Game 5 in 2016, I thought because of that, they've given Draymond the longest leash of any NBA player in the league, but I thought that would pertain to this too. I thought they would be very weary about suspending Draymond, specifically Draymond, for any sort of playoff game. But I stand corrected on this. They reassessed the situation. In their statement, they said they looked at his past as a player, they looked at his reputation, they looked at his history, and that was part of why they suspended him, which I think is interesting. I'm not against it. I do think a player's history is important when it comes to these sorts of things, because it identifies if there's a behavioral problem with that player. And I do think there is a behavioral problem with Draymond. And to be clear, Draymond is such a phenomenal player, absolute Hall of Famer, phenomenal defender. I think he's underrated to this day with the sort of job that he does on defense and the sort of energy and leadership he brings to that locker room. So this is not me hating on Draymond the player, but when you play against him, or if your team's playing against him, you do hate him. I mean, that's just how it is, and that's something he's happy with, right? That's kind of the player he wants to be. You love him when he's on your team. You hate him when you're against him. So like I can respect that, but at the same time, you need to face consequences for your actions. And so I understand the suspension and I support the suspension. I do think it puts the Warriors in a very, very precarious situation in Game 3. Hearing this news, they can attack it in two ways. They can either kind of wallow and sulk and they can come out with low energy in game 3 and think, okay, this series is over, like this game is over. They kind of did that in 2016. They did put up a bit of a fight, but they were really pissed off when Draymond got suspended in 2016, and it ended up, costing them that game and eventually the series. So there is a chance that the Warriors come out flat, and there is a chance that the Kings end up taking game 3, the first game in Golden State. So that would be huge for them. But I do think, considering they are a championship team, and we kind of know the history of the Golden State Warriors, I would not be surprised if this is something that they used as fuel to motivate them. I can imagine another scenario where the Warriors come out and they just go off, right? Like, this is something that the Kings are going to feel good about this. The Kings are going to go into this game confident. Now that Draymond is suspended, especially, and I think the Warriors are going to match that, and I think they could definitely come out guns blazing and drop 35, let's say 40 on them in the first quarter. That would not shock me either. I don't know which Warriors team we're going to get. I imagine the latter one, where they come out strong, but we are going to see. This is the opportunity for the Kings, though. If you are the Kings, you need to win game 3, because you do not want the series to go 7. You do not want to have to play a home game in game 7 against the Warriors, because I don't care what the Warriors' road record is. You get in that situation, the Warriors are going to do their best to take advantage and win that series. As much as the Kings have impressed me through the first 2 games here, the idea that I just can't wrap my head around the idea that the Warriors would lose all 4 home games if it goes 7, right? And it's like, that just comes with their reputation. That just comes with the fact that they've won championships in the past. So I think that this game 3 now kind of becomes a must-win for the Sacramento Kings if they want to win this series, especially if they want to win it in short order. And the last thing, partway through the second half of game 2, the Warriors were making some adjustments. Whether it was just, I don't even know scheme-wise what kind of adjustment they were making, but they were really they were stopping the Kings pretty effectively. And then one thing that they did on offense is they just started driving more. Steph Curry was able to drive repeatedly, and he got these free runs to the rim. And it's kind of reminded everyone, Steph Curry can drive as well. He's not just a three-point shooter. So that's something that I think Steve Kerr is going to dive deeper into in game 3. And that's been the Kings' weakness all season, is defending the paint and defending the rim. I mean, granted, they have done better in the postseason at that, but I think it's time for the Warriors to exploit that weakness, and I think they kind of saw that they could in game 2. So overall, that's my takeaway for the Draymond Green suspension. This is still just one of the wildest first rounds of any year of basketball I can remember. I mean, 6 of these 8 series have been crazy close. I'm so excited for the rest of this postseason.